Hello everybody, welcome back to Metaphor. Didn't play a couple of days. But yeah, today we're gonna continue. Looking forward to seeing how the game advances. De Nouveau was kind of circumvented for this one via the demo exe. And it's kind of always unfortunate because I don't like De Nouveau, right? But we all know what's gonna happen. Right, people are just gonna take the game and steal it, and that's actually perfectly okay if you don't have money and you're poor and you could never afford it anyway, or you're young, your parents can buy it to you, right? If there is no money, I think pirating is okay, right? But as soon as you have money, obviously you should pay people for what they did. And also, right, not spending money on something else instead of the game and then, saying, oh, I don't have money. That's not fair either, right? If you really don't have money, I think pirating is a gray zone for me where you're like, okay, it's not legal, but, I won't condone the behavior, right? When I was young, right, I mean, back then it was completely normal to pirate everything. There were a lot of games that weren't even released in the West. It was just completely normal. I spent money on games, all the money I had actually, but all I didn't spend, right, was friends giving me like CDs and right offline stuff, right? There was no internet, so it was like pretty common actually. Yeah, but actually, if you have the money, obviously pay the people for what they do, right? I mean, when I, emulated certain games, I usually buy them, right? I just emulate them for other reasons. So yeah, like I said, always support the people working and don't use the excuse of De Nouveau to justify you stealing the game, right? De Nouveau is unfortunate, but the reality is, right, what does De Nouveau do? Because you might argue that every game's going to end up being pirated, and that's true. What De Nouveau does basically, and the reason why it's so prevalent, it delays the inevitable, right? So it delays how long it takes until the game is gonna be up for grabs for free, basically. And the launch period is so important for games. You might have realized also for shows that a lot of shows and games actually get cancelled while they're still running, right? Just after release. So it doesn't matter if you're like, I'll buy the game in a sale later, I'll do this, right? The reality is your project and your team's probably already gonna get fired and cancelled if the launch is shit, right? Sometimes even pre-orders can already be enough. So you really should consider, if you really like a certain game, to support it right away. Not because I think you should pay more money for it or you are gonna get a better product, because that's not true. You would neither, right? The better product is probably a pirated version 2 years after launch, right? Or for that matter, the legal version on a sale after launch. But the reality is the project will probably already have been decided as if it's a failure or not. So that's why if you really love a game, supporting the devs right away is really important. Not because the big companies don't have money, but because your devs are going to get fired by the big companies and you won't get a sequel, right? It's unfortunate, it's the reality, right? I'm not saying that they don't have the money to subsidize waiting, but the reality is you're not going to get another project of the same scope if your previous project fails in a big company, and that's how it works, right? That's unfortunately capitalism. And yeah, so you can't always make the excuse, oh, I'm gonna buy it on a sale, we're definitely gonna get a sequel though, right? No, you're not. If everyone's gonna wait for a sale, I mean, if that's common practice, devs will know, right? But the reality is a lot of people buy it right away, and those, if they don't, the project's fucked, right? So always like a trade, right? You can be the budget gamer type, which is perfectly fine, right? But that will lead to a lot of your games that you enjoy not being produced anymore. Because if everyone does it, right? I mean, if everyone does it, right? Then that's gonna happen. And yeah, so that's why I'm always a bit like, yeah, great, they fucked up with De Nouveau, but it's it exists as a result of capitalism and people, wanted to protect their IP, which is perfectly fine, right? So I think the only downside is obviously performance, right? That's an unfortunate downside, obviously. But the reality just for me is that, I can justify that. If it saves the project from going bankrupt. What I can't justify is the game actually not saving your FPS settings. I have no understanding for that, so that is a gross technical error. So if you don't know, you might be wondering, I'm playing on 120 Hz, 240 Hz, whatever, 480 Hz display, and you're like, hey, why does the game feel like 60? Well, that's because you're getting 60 unless you restart the, I mean, at least from my end, I don't know how if it's for everyone like that. You have to reset your frame cap every single time you tab out of the game.